This free program is paid for by the listeners of WBAI New York. If you're not already a member, think about joining us to help keep free speech alive.
Guaranteed to destroy any weapons of mass deception.
Welcome to the mother of all talk shows with me, George Galloway, coming from London this week on WBAI.
People of America, this is the President of the United States. You are listening to George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows. George is a Scotsman, and like me, an Irishman. Enjoy.
And welcome once again to the mother of all talk shows with me, George Galloway, coming to you from Ife. I'm bound to tell you, an exceedingly sunny, spring-like London town in the United Kingdom, which is good news up to a point. But the bad news is it means that it's not so technically easy to bring you this show as it was last week. So forgive us for any shortcomings that there might be in the form of the next 60 minutes. There will be, of course, no shortcomings in the content of the next 60 minutes because this is the mother of all talk shows. Gaze upon the events in the Arab Middle East and North Africa and tremble. Certainly that's what our rulers are doing as they ponder which dictator is going to hit the floor next. As we speak, the 33-year dictatorship of Ali Abdullah Saleh in the strategically important Gulf country of Yemen is hanging by a thread. His army chiefs are quitting. His ambassadors and ministers are abandoning ship. Some of them, no doubt, will be rats abandoning a sinking ship. Others will be strategically very, very important, like the governor of the northwest of the country, who has defected this morning, and like the chief of the security guards who are now guarding the protesters in the center of the capital, Sana'a. Very, very important people. Indeed, Ali Abdullah Saleh has sent his foreign minister to Saudi Arabia, that friend of liberty, no doubt to consult as to what move he might possibly make next. Maybe even to ask the Saudi Arabian armed forces, those friends of liberty too, to enter Yemen to try and save the regime, though that would be one of the biggest mistakes in all history. Mind you, you can understand why he's done it, because, well, Saudi Arabia has just invaded and now occupies the tiny island state of Bahrain, linked to Saudi Arabia by a 16-kilometer causeway, and of course the base of the United States Navy's Fifth Fleet, and again strategically extremely important, and in the Gulf. The Gulf, of course, being exceedingly important for all Western countries with their dependence on oil and gas. Situation in Palestine overnight, and we'll be talking about that in the course of the show. 7 civilians killed in Israeli bombardment overnight. 2 of them children, 3 of them women. That's 2 men, 3 women, 2 children. Any calls for a no-fly zone? What? Over Gaza? Of course, we all know that such a thing is ridiculous. In fact, not only is there not a no-fly zone, nor is there ever going to be one, but the airplanes and the weapons that are bringing down death and destruction on the incarcerated refugees in Gaza are all given gratis. Thank you very much. From the taxpayers of the United States of America. In Libya, the war goes on, except they can't quite agree who's running it. The United States, for a whole variety of reasons, is very keen to make it clear that it does not intend to stay in command of the massive bombardment of Libya. And you can understand why. The French want to run it themselves because little Sarkozy, the little midget popinjay, he wants to be re-elected as president next year, and he has precious little chance of being so, unless he can emerge appearing like a, well, I hate to say this, but like a Napoleon de nos jours. Do you get my drift, little Sarkozy? And, of course, he doesn't want NATO running this war because Turkey is a member of NATO, and Turkey is wholly opposed to what the coalition of the killing are doing in Libya. So is Germany a member of NATO. And Germany is wholly opposed to what we're doing, as is the government of Russia, at least the Prime Minister of Russia, Vladimir Putin, as is the government of China. And both of the latter countries, of course, have vetoes in the United Nations Security Council, though neither used them when this very foolishly drawn-up Resolution 1973 was passed by the Security Council. Why do I say foolish? Well, because it means all things to all men. It can mean anything that you want it to mean, as that famous character in Alice Through the Looking Glass once opined. Things mean precisely what I intend them to mean. No more, no less. Well, tell me what you think. You can call me on 212-209-2900. That's 212-209-2900. The unflappable, imperturbable trooper, Aoife, will be fielding the calls and handing them over to me. And I'm very grateful to her for that. You're listening, of course, to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway on WBAI every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. We've got a big red letter day in the British Parliament today. It's Budget Day, at which the British Chancellor of the Exchequer, the quaintly named Finance Minister of this great state, well, he'll be coming with his red box to the Houses of Parliament, which will be entirely empty. In fact, worse than empty, it will contain a very large machete. And with that machete, the Chancellor intends to set about the public sphere, to set about public services, to set about jobs. He will, as a result of today's statement, make hundreds of thousands of people unemployed, and desperately needed services will be no more. And this from a country that appears to be able to play a lead role in the war in Libya. I don't know if you know this, but of the hundreds of cruise missiles that were thrown at Libya from land and sea over the last few days, each of those cruise missiles costs $1 million each. I don't know what the cost to the United States taxpayer is because, of course, the vast majority of the weaponry and indeed the personnel so far are American. But I do know that Britain is spending £3 million a day in its role in Libya. This is on top of the £15 billion a year we're spending on our occupation of Afghanistan and the £12 billion that we spent in our occupation of Iraq. So in Britain, you see, it's a very odd country. We can't keep our old age pensioners warm in the winter time, but we can go around the world setting fire to other people's countries at the drop of a hat. Here's an interesting reflection that I have. See if you agree with me. I get the impression that the Yanks didn't actually want to get into this Libya war quite as much as the British and the French did. Tell me if you think I've got that wrong. 212-209-2900. That's the number to call to join the great debate with me, George Galloway, on WBAI every Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock, right after Democracy Now!, for the mother of all talk shows. Now, let me tell you about Janice Sharp. Janice Sharp is a remarkable woman. She's the mother of Gary McKinnon. Gary McKinnon hacked into the U.S. defense establishment's computers and is facing extradition from Britain to the United States, where he faces up to 60 years in prison. His mother, Janice Sharp, is perfectly convinced that if he were to be extradited and given such a sentence, that he would not survive it. He is a man with problems, as we'll discuss with Janice Sharp in just a minute. Janice has been conducting at first a one-woman campaign, and her campaign has been remarkably effective in British public opinion, though not so far with British ministers. Essentially, she's saying that if Gary McKinnon did anything wrong, and he was, after all, only looking for unidentified flying objects, yes, he's that sort of a boy, I'm afraid. I hope she'll forgive me, a slightly unusual boy who hacked into these computers, left messages that he had done so, did no damage of any kind. Indeed, he really ought to have been given a medal by the U.S. military establishments, because what he did was point up holes in their security, which they, if they had any sense, could thereafter fill. So Gary McKinnon is a cause célèbre here in the United Kingdom. There's a big movement demanding that he not be extradited to the United States. Many of us hoped that the change of government in the United States would lead to less pressure coming from the U.S. for this rather troubled young man to be extradited there. But it has not turned out to be so. The Americans still want him. I hope, if Ife has managed it, to talk now to Janice Sharp on the line in London. Janice, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Well, tell us what the latest situation is, and summarize, if you wouldn't mind, just why Gary should not be sent to the United States.
Well, the latest situation is the House of Lords today are having a debate about Gary, and they are actually wanting to know, has our government gone to Obama, gone back to the American government to give them an update on how bad his mental health is and of the mental health in the family, which has all made Gary, according to one psychiatrist, because of autistic logic, suicide would be inevitable were extradition ruled on. The case is Gary, it was 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, he had hacked into the Pentagon, but in actual fact, there was no passwords or firewalls, and he left cyber notes telling them this, and that they had to do something about it. So, I mean, it's arguable whether it was actually a hack. But in any case, it's 9 years since his arrest. He was arrested in March 2002, and since then, it's been 9 years of mental torture, which is more of a sentence than many people who murder people or rape people, manslaughter. It's a horrendous sentence, absolutely horrendous.
Now, tell us something about Gary's mental condition then and now.
Well, Gary has Asperger's syndrome, and when in 1983 on his 17th birthday, we actually took him to a neurologist because we thought he had a brain tumour, because at that time he was losing his mental faculties. But apparently that's when Asperger's, when people do really have a breakdown, is in their teens, when they leave home, when they first go out to a job and they don't have the security of their family or their school friends or whatever. And unfortunately, Asperger's wasn't known about then until the mid-1990s. The World Health Organization first recognized it. So we thought he had a brain tumor. But the thing is that with people with Asperger's, the criteria is intelligence, but they don't recognize facial expressions. They don't realize consequences. But Gary felt he was doing something good. He didn't think he was doing something bad. He felt that it was right to sort of point out this, what's happening and what's going on. And he also left a cyber peace protest, which shouldn't really be an extraditable offence.
Well, I mean, mens rea and the intention of the quote-unquote criminal is always an important issue in deciding whether or not to prosecute someone. But this is an offence, if offence it was, as you say, when there's no password and no firewall. It's hard to see that it can really be called a break-in. This was 10 years ago. It did no damage. Why exactly is the U.S. justice system pursuing Gary so remorselessly?
I think the reason is they want an example of computer crime, and I don't know why they can't find any. I mean, there's supposed to be such a big thing about terror. Surely there are some terrorists they can find. But I think basically when Gary was arrested in March 2002, he didn't have a lawyer. He thought he didn't need one. Unfortunately, he didn't ring me to let me know, although I'd always told him if he's ever in trouble to do that. And I think because he didn't have a lawyer, because he was very open, they thought, oh, well, he'll do, as an example for computer crime. And most of the people who have been getting extradited from Britain since this new treaty came in, it is examples of new crimes. With Ian Norris, it was a crime related to price fixing, and in the American newspapers, it was saying they were very pleased because no one had ever been extradited for this before. There's another one coming up with a man called Christopher Tappan, and that's for entrapment. And it's all crimes that no one, it's like examples, it's as though they're looking for
Precedents, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, of course, these other cases, many of them involve malfeasance or alleged malfeasance of one kind or another, alleged misappropriation of resources and so on of one kind or another. In Gary's case, we're arguing this is a victimless crime.
Well, it was. I mean, there's no money, nothing to do with anything like that. They did claim that when the CPS, the high-tech crime unit, arrested him, they said he was looking at a few months community service because there had been no damage. And had the U.S. applied for extradition in 2002, they would have to have given evidence of the alleged damage. But they waited until mid-2005 before requesting the extradition from Britain, despite having indicted him in America in 2002, because by then we were using a treaty that required no evidence whatsoever to extradite.
Well, this is where I came in, as you'll recall, as one who opposed this treaty in the British Parliament, though, of course, I was unable to oppose it before it was signed, because it was signed in secret by the then British Home Secretary. It was a secret treaty. It was never brought to Parliament for discussion, let alone agreement. And it's the most one-sided extradition treaty it's possible to imagine, isn't it? The United States used to have to show evidence that would satisfy a judge in England that the British citizens should be extradited. Now they merely have to issue a warrant, effectively, and the British must send their man to the United States jurisdiction. But, of course, that doesn't work the other way round. The U.S. would never agree to such a thing about its own citizens.
Absolutely. The U.S. rarely extradite their own. Under freedom of information, there's 33 people have been extradited from America, and 30 of them are not American, and the other 3 have dual nationality. Whereas the people who were extradited from Britain, and that's despite America having 5 times the population to us, the people extradited from Britain, 28 out of 33 were British. And America will rarely extradite its own. That's a fact. And President Obama said, when David Cameron raised Gary's case with President Obama at the World West press conference, he said that presidents never get involved in extradition, but that's not true. They actually refused to extradite the person India believes is responsible for Bhopal, and they refused to extradite CIA men to Italy. And recently they were accused of paying blood money for another American
to get him out of Pakistan.
That's
well,
right.
Look, Janice, we're running out of time. Tell me this: the House of Lords, which for American listeners is the upper house, so-called, in the British Parliament. They're debating it today. Have you got a website that people can go on to get more about this?
Yeah, www.garystays.co.uk.
GaryStays.co.uk.
And we believe that Gary will stay. President Obama's coming here in May to stay at Buckingham Palace for a state visit. And I'm hoping that because our government is in this Libyan conflict, everything that America goes into, we stand by them. I'm hoping that our government will convince Obama to this one little thing they've asked for, to not extradite Gary and let him be tried in his own country. He's not asking for leniency.
Janice, thanks very much indeed, mother of Gary McKinnon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
I did not have sexual relations with George Galloway. This is George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows.
Well, Bill was telling the truth on that occasion, at least. He did not, but he does listen to my radio show. I'm reliably informed. It is, of course, the mother of all talk shows, and it's on WBAI every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. for just an hour. So take the phone number down, 212-209-2900. Aoife, have we got any calls on the line?
Yes, you have actually Diod from Staten Island on the line.
Perfect. Staten Island, I've still not visited, but I intend to. Go ahead, Staten Island.
We can't wait to see you in Staten Island, George.
I'd love to, man. I'll do it the next time I'm over. What can I do for you?
Yes, George. Before I ask you the question, I would like to show my appreciation. I don't know how to describe the way the Palestinians in particular feel about your support. for justice.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
That is needed where what's happening in Palestine is beyond descriptions, and the world is standing up its eye.
Well, that's right. We're going to be talking to a couple of guests later on this subject, so I think you'll find that interesting. Anyway, please make your point, sir. I think we lost that caller. It did seem to be a bit of a shaky line. Aoife, have you got anyone else on the line?
Yes, you have Steve from Brooklyn.
Okay, Steve in Brooklyn. Far away. Brooklyn I know well.
Mr. Galloway, I've seen you take heat in Parliament on a number of occasions. I appreciate your positions.
Thank you, my friend.
What I want to ask you, and you touched on it already, is what incredible piece of international blackmail made Russia and China not use their veto in this case? And even though Putin is being so vocal about it, and China doesn't seem to be scared of anybody, so what did we do to intimidate them into this abstention position?
Well, I mean, they've either been fooled, which is a bit hard to believe, especially China, which has amongst the most sophisticated diplomats on the earth, or some kind of acknowledgement of each other's spheres of influence came into play. I think in the case of Russia, what has emerged over the last 48, 72 hours is a complete rift between the Prime Minister Vladimir Putin and the President Medvedev. It was, of course, the President who took the decision to abstain merely from this motion. We shouldn't underestimate the importance of abstaining, not therefore being in support of it, but still, as you say, they could have vetoed it. Now, Putin's made clear that he would have vetoed it. He said it's like a medieval crusade. Well, that's pretty strong, pretty incendiary stuff, and it would appear that this may have something to do with internal politics within Russia. Of course, Putin intends to be president again and almost certainly will. China recalled the Security Council yesterday to discuss this. I'm not sure what the outcome, if any, was, but it's clear that Turkey, Germany, Russia, China, India, which has denounced so India and China, the two biggest countries in the world, Steve, are completely against this, which helps put into perspective all the claims that it's the international community. We always like to call ourselves the international community, don't we?
Completely would mean a veto, but yes, we do.
Well, I mean, of course, the problem now is, even if Russia and China were to introduce a motion, say, to call this whole thing off, then Britain, France, America could and almost certainly would veto that new resolution. It would still be worth doing because it would still show that there was no international consensus around this, because it's actually going to lead us deeper into the quagmire in the Muslim world. But having missed their opportunity, I think China and Russia will have a long time to repent.
Yes. Do you think that Putin has much less control than he had with the previous president?
No, I think that Putin is the real power in Russia. And he's obviously decided that Medvedev took the decision that he did and shouldn't have, and he's going to destabilize him for it. He may even be using it as a casus belli to open up a campaign against Medvedev, because, of course, Putin was the president. He had to stand down because of the law on consecutive terms. You can't serve more than 2 consecutive terms. But, of course, you can stand down for one and then come back again. And I think definitely that's what Putin intends to do. Steve, thanks very much for your call,
Thank you very
my friend,
much, sir.
In Brooklyn, where I have many, many friends. Aoife, any other calls there on the line?
Yes, you actually have Lincoln from Mount Vernon up next.
Excellent. Lincoln, go ahead, my friend.
Hi, Mr. Galloway. How are you?
I'm very well, sir. Thanks for the call.
Great. I want to address the Libya situation. I think a lot of times people are missing the complication of it. And the main complication, I think, is the CIA's involvement. Just like how I don't like the fact that Gaddafi has been there for that many years. But at the same time, the U.S. interest is not concerning him being there for many years, and it's not concerning him being a tyrant. It's the same interest like they have in destroying Mugabe of Zimbabwe and of destabilizing that country, because they are totally against Mugabe and his position towards them. And I think that, many of, people tend to keep forgetting how deceptive the CIA is and all these private agendas they have. And it is
well, look, Lincoln, if you think the CIA is deceptive, you ought to try the French and the British intelligence apparatus. They could show you a thing or two. But, Lincoln, the thing that's wrong with your thesis, although I get to the same place as you, but not for the same reasons, is that both Mugabe and Gaddafi have governed their countries disastrously badly. As you will have heard me say last week, Gaddafi could have made every Libyan a multi-millionaire, and the public sphere in Libya should look like Beverly Hills. This is a country of a very small number of people, now 6 million, but when he took over, just over 2 million. So just over 2 million people, rising to 6 million people, have theoretically shared an oil and gas bonanza of, well, frankly, unimaginable proportions. They should all be rich, and their country should be paradise. But it's very, very far from that. Mugabe was a great liberation leader, but he's been a dreadful prime minister, as anyone who's looked at the economy, both agricultural and other, in Zimbabwe can testify. Moreover, Gaddafi was not opposing the United States policy in the Middle East over the last decade at all. Gaddafi sold his soul to Britain and the United States.
Yeah,
he opened the books.
He did that for survival, because you remember when they tried to kill him in 1985 or 86.
Well, why is he so concerned about survival? He's now telling us he's ready to fight to the death.
As you heard what I said in the beginning, I do not support him being there for many years. However, I do not want to excuse the USA, England, France, or Italy, because we know that they have imperialistic motivations.
Absolutely. Look, Lincoln, we're on the same page.
Remember too that Mugabe was also strangulated by Britain and England because of him wanting to redistribute the land to the people. So,
well, it took 20 years, Lincoln, to redistribute any land, and then he gave most of it to his pals from ZANU-PF. I'm not with you on that one. On Libya, the reality is that Gaddafi is bad. The people trying to bring him down, namely the imperialist system, are worse, and their intentions are dishonest. So we end up in the same place, even if we have to differ in our evaluation of Gaddafi's time.
What you said about people being could be rich in Libya. You could say that too of a place like Trinidad, where all they're rich in tar and oil, but yet all these foreign companies, USA, England, etc., come and rape the country.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point, though I'm very far from an expert on Trinidad. I am, though, an expert on Libya. And in the Arab Middle East, I can tell you that a country with so few people and so much oil and gas, everyone who walks around it does so with their mouth hanging open, wondering, where did all the money go? And the truth is, a lot of it went into the pockets of the Gaddafi family and the clique around him. This is no kind of progressive hero. This is no Spartacus. And let's not try and build them up.
I agree with you. It's just that what I'm saying is that in the midst of it all, the USA, they are so self-righteous and they like to paint everybody bad when this country is the biggest terrorist in the world. That's the point I wanted to make.
And you're right about that. Let me tell you, Lincoln, I don't know about your country, but my country sold Gaddafi last year £220 million worth of military weapons and equipment. And we trained his special forces at our special forces headquarters in Hereford, and we trained his officers at Sandhurst, the Royal Military College, and we trained his police force in the National Police College. So we're not in much of a position.
Which is similar to what they did with Saddam. Saddam was not bad when he was killing the Iranians, but when he was doing the USA biddings, he was not bad. The same thing with Noriega. When Noriega was working for the CIA, he was not bad. But
the only point, Lincoln, the only point I'd make on that is he was good when he was killing the Iranians. Britain and America Britain and America were backing him killing Iranians. It's only when he turned his attention elsewhere.
Once they're doing the biddings of their handlers, meaning the USA, etc., then they're good. But when they're doing evil for their own benefit, then they're bad. And this is what we all need to awaken to. And we must realize that there is no reason for poverty in America too. So just like how the people in those countries could be rich, everybody in this country could be at least middle class too. So we should not excuse the United States.
Great call, Lincoln. It's been a pleasure talking. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Let me remind you of the number: 212-209-2900. If you have a call for the mother of all talk shows. Have we got anyone else, Ife?
Yes, you have Tom from the Bronx.
Go ahead, Tom, on the Bronx.
Yes,
go ahead.
Mr. Galloway, it's a delight to talk to you. I'd like to say that you going to Gaza was really bold.
Well, I went. I managed to get 4 convoys in, and one, of course, was drowned in blood on the Mediterranean in international waters.
Okay.
But I'm proud of what we did. Yeah, thanks.
Right. Now, I'd like to say this. With the new government in Egypt, I wish that the United States government and the English government would get together and talk to the new leaders of Egypt to sell a major portion of the Sinai Peninsula and to financially create this area into a homeland for the Palestinian people, which would be a bigger area than the area that they're looking to get. And the area they have is too split up. I don't know whether you ever got a letter from me. I tried to send it through WBAI.
I didn't get it
you didn't
yet.
get it. All right, now, well,
I didn't get it yet, but let me tell you why I disagree with you. The Sinai is, of course, a desert.
Yeah, but it has to be rehabilitated. It can't be rehabilitated.
No, but the Palestinian people don't need to go and live in a desert.
No, but it would be rehabilitated.
Yeah, but let me finish.
Physically
yeah, but let me finish, brother. They don't need to go and live in a desert because they already have a country of their own called Palestine. No, they have a country called Palestine, which is not a desert.
No, I'm talking
which
about
is
the
beautiful.
Nation of Palestinia.
Yeah, no, but
open a new country called the Nation of Palestinia.
Yeah, but I'm telling you why that's not.
All right,
all right, my friend. I'm telling you why that's not acceptable. Because Palestine is Jerusalem. Palestine is Haifa and Jaffa. Palestine is Ramallah, and Palestine is Gaza.
But I'm talking about a new concept.
Yeah, you are, but I'm rejecting it. Because that would be to allow the thieves who stole their country to make off with the prize.
Yeah, but we just can't keep going over the same material.
Oh, yes, we can, believe me.
We need a new line of logic.
No, believe me, we can, we will, we are, and we're going to win. Because these revolutions...
Listen, where somebody had a farm years ago, it's now a warehouse, or it's a gasoline station, or it's a fast food joint on their property that they used to have. It's gone.
Yeah, it's gone, but legally...
come back to what it was.
No,
Maybe it's a government building.
Well, whatever it is, it either has to be given back to the person whose property...
I say it cannot.
Well, this is not going to work if we speak over each other.
I'm sorry.
So let me answer the point that you're making.
Right.
Whatever it's been turned into, it will either have to be given back to the person whose property it is, or the person whose property it is will have to be compensated according to international norms. This is the law. And it doesn't, with the passage of time, become any less of the law. And the reason I'm vehemently against what you're suggesting, that the Palestinians accept a piece of the Sinai desert instead of the beautiful, fruitful, no, it might be major in terms of acreage, but it's sand. I've been there.
Yeah, but it's rocky in a lot of parts.
The Palestinians want Jerusalem back. Can you get that into your head?
Yeah,
Jerusalem was theirs and must be theirs
the only
again.
Thing they're offering these people, and it's nothing. They're giving them peanuts. Do you understand? And it's too broken up. In other words, there's nothing
it's not. It is broken up. It is broken up.
Yeah, but it's not cohesive. It's not. The Sinai is cohesive.
No, but you're talking about a false dichotomy here. I'm not supporting the broken up Bantustan, Balkanized Palestine of the so-called Oslo Agreement. Palestine is from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, and my plan. And it might take 100 years or even 500. My plan is that the Jews and the Muslims and the Christians must live as equal citizens under the law, one man, one woman, one vote, one government, between the river and the sea. Nothing about broken up. Nothing about a lack of congruity. It is one country from the river to the sea. That's what Palestine is, and that's where the Palestinians must return. Anyway, it's been great. It's been great disagreeing with you. Thanks very much.
I don't see where that's going to work, sir.
Well, it might not work, but then nothing else is working. One thing I can tell you.
Why they should try
I can tell you.
Palestinian.
I can tell you.
Create a new country in the bridge name of Palestine.
Yeah, no, the Brits didn't name it Palestine. It was always Palestine. I know this argument, and I know where you're coming from. I know where you're coming from. You're running out of the same stable as Golda Meir's statement that there is no such thing as a Palestinian. Well, you've learned. You've learned in the last 40
we need
years.
An alternative. That's all I could say.
Okay, Palestinia in the desert of the Sinai is a non-starter.
Rehabilitated. You
trust
the
me.
Word rehabilitated.
Well, okay.
Physically.
Okay, Palestinia, a rehabilitated desert in Sinai, is a non-starter. Let me promise you that. No takers. Sorry, friend. No takers. Not buying. Next call, Ife. Next call, please.
Okay, well, you have Johnny from the Bronx on the, from Williamsburg, BK, I'm sorry.
Hi, Johnny. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, George. How are you?
I'm very well. Nice to talk to you. Go ahead.
Good man. Listen, you seem to have a love affair with dictators. Why don't you go to Cuba and...
I often go to Cuba. I'm a big lover of Cuba. I have a love affair with Cuba. And if you go on Amazon, you can see my Fidel Castro handbook. And if you read it, you might actually learn something, Johnny. Johnny's disappeared off the line. What a pity. I would have liked to have argued with him. 212-209-2900. That's the number to call. Ife, do we have another one?
Yes, we actually have Monroe from Harlem.
New York City. I want to thank you for using zeros in the telephone number. I pushed for that in the old days, but some people use the letter O, and that's on the MNO.
No, zero's much better, much better.
Yeah, that's what I feel, and so is Verizon, even though it's a capitalist corporation. As to the what happened, I see this whole thing with Egypt where Mubarak had to leave, although he's left his subordinates, but he could have had a mass killing there, and he didn't. As a matter of fact, what is a tribute, in a sense, to the army and the police force, and somebody has done rendition for us in Egypt, I understand, the torture, so we don't have to do it here in the USA. But the point is that the army and the police didn't go and annihilate their own people because they're brothers and sisters of each other. So what am I saying? Gaddafi, on the other hand, having a tremendous war entourage, planes and tanks and everything, is now trying to liquidate his opponents so he can collect more and more of his billionaire money, so he can be, in power longer. So I say to you that what has been done about the no-fly zone and, shall we say, the wanting of a peace, doing, is in line with what has been happening, because I'm not in favor of our, United States or any other country bombing a nation that hasn't declared war on them. But the point is that it's not fair to have freedom fighters liquidated by the modern means of, annihilation. So
well, look, that was a good call, and I profoundly disagree with you, and let me explain to you why, and then we'll need to press on because we've got a couple of Israeli guests coming up next. First of all, Mubarak killed hundreds of people before he departed. It's not the case, as you described, that the Egyptian regime met their challengers, their nemesis, with equanimity. They did not. More than 500 people were murdered in cold blood in Egypt before the revolution triumphed. Many other hundreds of people disappeared, and many thousands of people were cast into the dungeons, and many of them were tortured. And it was only the sheer numbers of the protesters on the streets, in their millions of people, cannot be gunned down. That's why Mubarak did not open further fire on his challengers. That's the only reason why. Anybody who believes that Mubarak somehow balked at the idea of killing democratic, peaceful protesters, unarmed people, out of any kind of moral qualms has obviously not been listening. Secondly, anyone who's ever been to Libya knows that the idea of command and control and systems, never mind integrated systems, is a complete non sequitur. The Libyan regime is the most disorganized society I have ever come across anywhere on the earth. And I've been to some of the very poorest countries on the earth. The Libyan fighting machine, as you describe it, is a complete myth. What is clear from those very few pictures, oddly, that we are seeing of the conflict in Libya is that, number one, it's a conflict between very small numbers of people on either side. And number two, the column, for example, destroyed by French aircraft on its way, apparently, allegedly, to Benghazi, actually contained more saloon cars and pickup trucks than anything that could remotely be described as a military vehicle. So this is a primitive conflict between small numbers of people. And the people fighting Gaddafi, and I count myself as one of them, cannot be described as peaceful protesters or democracy campaigners. The rebels in Libya have aeroplanes and tanks and heavy weapons. It is a revolution, and a revolution which rises up in an armed insurrection to challenge the state power is going to, of course, have to fight for it. And if the Libyan revolution is to triumph, and if its triumph is to be meaningful, then it will have to fight and defeat the regime. Now, look, I have to press on because I've got two guests, both of them Israelis, both of them former strong supporters of the Zionist ideal, both of them with a background in the Israeli military and indeed having, in one case, been the victim herself of terrorism. They are Daphna Levitt and Zalman Amit. Nowadays, they're living in North America. And, if I'm lucky, they'll be on the line now on the mother of all talk shows. My friends, are you there?
Yes, we are.
Excellent. Now, you've written this tremendous new book. Tell us about it and what the thesis you're pursuing is.
Well, the book is called Israeli Rejectionism, and as a result of many years of being active in the Israeli peace movement, both of us came to the conclusion that there were too many inconsistencies when Israel kept saying that it wanted peace and nothing else. And so over the years, we explored this promise of let's have peace, only to end up in an exacerbated violence and continued terrorism. And it was so convenient.
It's a peace process that's endless process with no peace, isn't it? And it's not going to lead to peace because it's not based on justice.
Well, it's not based on justice. It's not based on, say, universal ideas of justice. It's certainly based on a warped Israeli idea of justice. And the Israelis, I think, and this is what we tried to prove, always had something more important than peace on their minds in the evolution of the State of Israel.
Now, where is the book published, and how can people get it?
Right.
And is Zalman there? I'd like to hear from him, too.
Yes, I'll tell you where the book is published, and then I'll put Zalman on.
Thanks.
The publisher is Pluto Press. It's a British publisher, and you can obtain it, I think, on Amazon as well. Some distributors in Canada have pre-ordered the book, but hopefully it will be in New York bookstores sometime in May.
And just remind us again, Daphna, what's the title?
Israeli Rejectionism, A Hidden Agenda in the Middle East Peace Process. Great
title, I must say. Zalman, are you there, my friend?
I'll put him on.
Thanks.
Hello.
Hi, Zalman. I just wanted to further explore. Daphna's given us the basic thesis of the book. How pessimistic are you about any prospect of the Israeli state seeing sense in the new conditions that will obtain in the Middle East over the next months and years?
Well, I'm very pessimistic, and in fact, the conclusion of the book is that sadly, we don't see a peace agreement occurring in our lifetime. I don't think that it's in the books. I don't think that Israel is interested in pursuing any kind of peace that will lead to the establishment of a viable Palestinian state.
And yet, the sea of Arabs around the state of Israel is now going to look very, very different. The new Egypt, the new democratic Egypt, which is hopefully just a few months away, will never again agree to be the jailer of the Palestinians in Gaza, for example, will never again agree to be the divider of the Palestinian national movement, and Egyptian diplomacy will henceforth be at the disposal of the Palestinian case rather than an enemy of it. And all around we are seeing a transformation in the Arab arena. If Israel doesn't roll with that, doesn't move with that, then we really are in a very starkly isolated place for the citizens of what they call Israel.
Absolutely. And in fact, some of particularly the left-wing commentators in Israel, have said that this is an opportunity for Israel to become integrated in a new Middle East. But the reaction that you see of official Israel, i.e. the government, is primarily, well, we've lost the partners that we had. We lost the colleagues that we had in the Middle East, referring, of course, to people like Mubarak and such like people. So I don't think that official Israel, the Israeli government, particularly the current government, has even a clue about the opportunity that is availing itself to them, and they're not. Besides that, they're not particularly interested.
Well, look, you know me, Zalman. I always let a woman have the last word. So let me have a word, if I may, with Daphna, just to conclude this discussion. Thanks very much.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Just 1 second.
Thank you.
Yes, it's me.
Hi, Daphna. Just finally, do you think the governments of North America are beginning to see, as General Petraeus put it, that at least for the United States, the Canadian government seems to be quite a way behind, that for the government of the United States, this special relationship with what will now be an increasingly isolated Israel is a strategic liability for them? And will that make a difference if they do so conclude?
It would make a difference if they do so conclude, but somehow I don't see it happening. I don't see them make that leap into believing that in fact Israel is still a liability. They still believe that there is a monolithic Jewish community. They refer to it as the Jewish community, and therefore they deal with what they knew. They don't deal with what is changing or evolving, and they don't see the vitality that is emerging out of those people who can see the opportunities of a new Middle East.
Daphna Levitt and Zalman Amit, thank you very much indeed. Two authors, and you can go to Amazon, get their book. It sounds a terrific read, published by Pluto. I myself will be getting a hold of it just as quickly as I can. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, Aoife, we've got a few minutes left. Can we take any more calls? Anyone else on the line?
Actually, we do have someone on the line, and I'm going to get to him right now. He's on air right now.
Thank you very much. Hello, caller. Yes, hello. Hello. Well,
hello.
I've lost that caller.
Hello.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead. You're on the air.
Okay.
You're on WBAI.
Okay. Hi. Okay. Yes, I hear many assertions, and I agree with them that the imperial powers of Europe and the United States occupy different countries and make wars. But I wanted to say that Puerto Rico is an occupied nation since 1898. and we are a nation with a language. We have our own territory, a history. We have national heroes and heroines, and I don't see much support in WBAI for Puerto Rico's independence. And I was wondering if one of these days, Mr. Galloway, to whom I respect very much, if you could sometime mention Puerto Rico and its need for independence.
Well, listen, I'm not responsible, of course, for WBAI. I only work here. I'm just an employee. I'm responsible for what I say and for what I believe. And let me tell you that I promise I'll look into the very point that you have just made. I'd be a liar if I pretended that I'm an expert on the situation in Puerto Rico. But the next time you talk to me, I'll be a better expert than I am today. Thanks very much indeed for the call. I promise you I'll study that question. And I'm always ready to be educated on areas of the world that I know less about. You can't know everything about everything, to paraphrase Mr. Lincoln. Now, do we have time for another caller, Ife?
Yes, you have Mike from New Jersey on the line.
Okay, Mike. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Mr. Galloway, I've been a big fan for a long time.
Thank you, friend.
I wanted to ask you, as a Scotsman of Irish descent, what's your opinion of the extreme austerity measures that they're passing in Ireland and the lack of seemingly public response to it? There's been no mass demonstrations on the street, no... I mean, they had a change in government here recently, but when the new government came in, they essentially repudiated their prior stance. There was no public response to that, no large
Well, I think it's a bit more complicated than that, Mike. There was, of course, a big public agitation which brought about an early election. And there was a wholesale rejection of the Fianna Fáil Green Party coalition government, which was decimated at the polls. The problem is the people who emerged with the majority of the seats in the Dáil, which is the Irish Parliament, are determined to follow through the previous government's austerity measures to please the lenders, including the European banks and the IMF. And their austerity measures mean considerable pain for the mass of the Irish people who gained little from the boom years and the reckless capitalist adventures of the banks in particular in their country. And the big betrayal, I'm sorry to say, is from the Irish Labour Party, which came second in the election, which could have declared itself the opposition, could have taken a path of opposition to the austerity, and could have built a coalition around it, which would have forced new elections and, I believe, a change of political direction. Instead, for a mess of potage, the deputy prime ministership of the state, they have gone along with the Fine Gael, which is the even more capitalist government, which has now taken power in Ireland. However, there is an opposition. Sinn Féin is the main pole within it, but there are also a considerable number, I think 9 socialist members of the Irish Parliament who, together with Sinn Féin and other independents, non-socialist, but generally opposition figures, are going to be quite a handful, I think, Mike.
Mm.
So watch this space, I suppose, is what I'm saying. And watch Britain on the 26th of this month, so that's this weekend, where the Trade Union Congress has called a mammoth demonstration against government austerity. And I think that that's going to be much bigger than people are anticipating. Mike, great to talk to you, my friend. And it's been great to talk to all of you. I don't know if I've got time for one more call. Ife, maybe a quick one, if you've got one there.
Yeah, we can do something real quick.
Okay.
We have Jay from Manhattan.
Go ahead, my friend.
Good morning, George.
Good morning to you. Welcome.
I'm a Tibetan, and with what's going on in Egypt and in the Middle East, a movement of freedom, can such a movement take place in China, where the Communist Party has been repressing their people for the last over 50 years? I think it's time the change has to come to even in China, and the movement has to take place even in China. And with that, I hope the Tibetan people can have some liberation of their own one day.
Well, you said it. I don't have time properly to respond, so we better put that up on the blackboard as a subject to which we're going to return. And you'll hear my response to it in due course. But we want all, if I may quote Chairman Mao, we want 1,000 flowers to bloom on this radio show. We want all points of view and all thoughts, all schools of thought to contend. Not that I'm a Maoist in any way, but I just thought that was an appropriate way to end up. Well, look, the show has flown by, at least for me. I hope it did for you. It's been marvelous. And if you agree that it was a show worth listening to, then make sure you tell somebody else. Let me give you all one task. Bring me one new listener next week, 9 a.m. at WBAI 99.5 FM on Wednesday mornings, right after Democracy Now! I'm here every week. The revolutions roll on. Indeed, they roll on unpredictably. We're not entirely sure where they're all going to end up. Some will end up in a good place. Some may end up in a bad place. Some may end up halfway between the two. But one thing is clear, that just like when the waters break and a woman's labor begins, there's no turning back. And at the end, there will be life or there will be death. That's where we are now in the Arab Middle East and North Africa. The one to watch this week is Yemen. It doesn't mean the other battles are not important, but the Yemeni dictatorship is on its very last legs. And it's going to fall, and it's going to fall very, very soon. I'd predict Friday afternoon will be the time for Ali Abdullah Saleh, the 33-year dictator of Yemen, to be on that airplane into political exile, probably in Saudi Arabia, if they'll have him. Although Saudi Arabia is getting awfully full of deposed tyrants, but only temporarily because, of course, the revolution's coming to Saudi Arabia too. At least that's what I hope and pray for. You have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I have been praying, waiting, fighting, arguing for this revolution for 35 years of my life, and it's finally happening. Spring is in the air. There's magic everywhere, and that magic is called revolution. So stop and listen and think. And you see that man with the gun over there? Never mind. He can't shoot all of us. If we're out in enough numbers, we will triumph. Like a lion after slumber, the Arab masses shake themselves of their torpor and take to the highways and the streets to depose their puppet presidents and their corrupt kings and sweep them into the ash can of history. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me. I hope any technical deficiencies did not spoil the show. I thank Aoife in particular from the bottom of my heart. Without her, there would have been no show today at all. And I thank WBAI for giving me this opportunity every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. to talk to the people of the city from where 100 or more years ago my great-great-grandmother emigrated from New York City to the Scottish town of Dundee. And if you've ever seen Dundee, and if you've ever seen New York, you'll know that was a very, very strange decision to make. However, if she hadn't made it, I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be talking to you. It's been marvelous. It's been George Galloway. It's been the mother of all talk shows.
The WBAI Community Advisory Board will be holding a meeting on March 29th, Tuesday, at 6 p.m. at the 6th Street Community Center, which is located at 638 East 6th Street between Avenue B and C. This event will start at 6 o'clock, and we want all to come.
Buddy, you're a boy, make a big noise playing in the street. Gonna be a big man someday. You got mud on your face, you big disgrace. Kicking your can all over the place.
Get ready, April 10th. Be there at Arlene's Grocery for WBAI's Artsy Fartsy Battle of the Bands. Attention all bands, get your submissions in now at WBAI.org. Be there as New York's hottest young acts get together and battle it out for cash and prizes. And also join us for an exciting after party. Be there April 10th. Get your submissions in now at WBAI.org and be a part of the hottest Battle of the Bands of all time. April 10th at Arlene's Grocery. It's gonna go down for prizes. The WBAI's Artsy Fartsy.
Please remember that this program